And we are kind of live. Yeah, we're good. Let's see. Haven't done that in a while, huh? Happy New Year, everyone. Let's wait for a minute or two until everyone joins the channel or the live stream. And put this on silent or... Yeah. Hi, Jamesy. How are you? Yeah. I actually took some time to figure out how am I... I forgot how do I go live. I was like, what is going on here? Why did I forget? Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, and I'm happy to be live and online. All right, let me put this on silent because this is going to be very noisy. Bicep Automotive, show us some flexing. Jockey or joke, or I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Thank you, guys. What up? All right, so to give you a bit of context, the reason why I went live today is because obviously I haven't done that for a while. And the other thing is to address Michael, questions like why did I use the sliders, or what is the difference between clarity and texture, and the other questions that he asked, and of course the questions that I put up something today on Instagram in which I asked you to ask me whatever you want me to answer on my live YouTube. I'm trying to find a window. I haven't done this in a while. Oh my god. Hey, what to expect today? I think I just said that I'm going to answer some of your questions that you've sent me through IG in a bit, but first we need to get that done. Also, if you have any question, please go ahead. Just send it through the chat and I'll try and answer that. Yeah, good. We're good. So as obviously I went back in time. I shot these like 2 years ago and I went back in time. Well, kind of back in time. I looked for the files. And, I was looking at something that I could edit out of these shots. Of course, there are plenty others. Let me just bring that one up. Most of you remember the shoot. And I found these right here. And I was like, yeah, it's time to do something with these. And this is the final one. This is what I posted on Instagram. But of course, I've changed the skies a bit because it was too dull in here. YN300. Oh, of course you can. All right, so we have Stats Visual says he got or she got a young new YN300, and whether he or she would buy a softbox, would it be possible to light paint without it? Of course you would. The softbox is just meant to diffuse the light and also give you that softer look to the light when you light paint. So you can do with or without. It's just going to look slightly different when the light is diffused. So I would recommend getting a box, soft box, sorry. It will give you a different dimensions, I would say, or a different look, very softer tones. All right, so again, any questions, leave them right there and we are gonna get to it. So the first question is, what is the difference between texture and clarity, right? So why do I need to use this versus that, and when to use them? And it could be tricky sometimes answering these questions, but don't hold me to that. So let me bring the clarity slider down. I can't remember using the clarity. Maybe I did. Of course, I did. I do use the clarity and the texture, but let me show you the difference. Or not show you, let me explain it to you. That would be better. I use it this way, all right? So when I use clarity, I know that I'm going to, what is the word? Add a bit of tonality and contrast, right? So I want to add mid-tone, contrast in the mid-tone. I forgot the words. I haven't done that in a while. But adding that contrast and clarity, which is kind of smarter contrast than what you have in there. Over here, just darkens and brightens everything. The tonality in bigger objects in the photo. So if I push the clarity slider towards the end, that surprisingly it looks really good. In this photo, I am affecting the larger areas of the photo, the tonality of the photo, if that makes sense. Now, if I use the texture, look at that. It looks good. It looks good for in this photo, only in this photo. This is not a very good example. At 100%, never do 100%. It affects smaller details in the photo. It applies contrast in the very smaller areas of photo. So it affects the small details and not the large and medium details. Now let me put that back and I'll use the clarity slider. You see that it affects the edges, and you can obviously notice it when you do the texture. You would notice it, but not at the same intense, because it's affecting smaller details. So that's, in a nutshell, the difference between both. You can use them both, of course, not one on top of the other. I've seen other photographers or retouchers that use the texture slider to get smoother skins or skin tone or skins on the models. So that is the difference between the both, and use them, carefully. With the clarity, I usually don't go to 100%. Depending on the photo and the setting, I will dial it in and will dial it out, depending on the look. So it's very subjective, but yeah, that's the difference between both. I hope that makes sense. The tonal contrast. There you go. I remember tonal contrast, which is the mid-tone. So they both affect the tonal contrast, but they affect the surface area as a size. So the texture is for the smaller size or the small details, and the clarity is for the larger details. Yeah, finally, that came along. Tonal contrast. So we have another question here. Where do I find images of the sky similar to this one? I use Shutterstock. Shutterstock is one of my favorite places in which I look for photos. This is another edit that I didn't like, by the way. Yeah, Shutterstock, that's where I get my photos from. And I like it because they have this plan. I kind of pay as you go, or I think I use the 5 images plan that I use, and I keep there whenever I need it. I'll just go and download the photo from them. But I think Adobe Stock is another option. I've seen a lot of people like Dominic, for example, uses that a lot. But that would require a plan in which you pay on a monthly basis, and I don't use it that often, so that's why I prefer Shutterstock as an alternative. All right, do you dark up the ground on your photos, or is it the real color? No, I do dark up the ground sometimes, not always. In this, for example, photo, I did darken up the ground. I did darken up the ground here as well. Now, let me show you the difference. I edited this in Photoshop, by the way, as well. Here I just used the gradient tool, right? So I've got the gradient tool, and I dropped the exposure and I increased the clarity, you know, the usual. I mean, I can add more texture to this just to show more of the road. But here on this, in this photo, let me show the before and after. So this is the before. I mean, you wouldn't see the difference here. But in this photo, however, I believe I used the gradient tool, and I also used the brush tool. But I think I did it in Photoshop. So I do darken the ground. You're absolutely right. I do darken the ground to, I don't know, add more contrast and get more attention towards the car as well. Because when the ground is just too bright, the car just loses the point. Can't find the words today, guys. Sorry. I haven't done that in a while. But yeah, let me try and open this in Photoshop. And let me show you. Ooh. Original. Oh. Hang on a second. All right. The setting on disk. Cancel, I guess. Yeah, loading Photoshop. Thanks. I'm glad you guys like the photo. Can get close to shots with Luminar and GIMP. I mean, I do use Luminar, but I use it as a plugin, not as a standalone application. Waiting for Photoshop to read that TIFF format is taking so long because that was shot on A7R2, which is a 40 megapixels camera. Without image stabilization, that will be very hard. I think I tried it once, and that was a complete failure, honestly. When you do rolling shots, you'll need some sort of and lens at least stabilization. Not necessary an in-body image stabilization, but yeah. Before we go into Photoshop, let me open up Lightroom back because I didn't finish answering all of our friend's question. Michael, I'm trying to find that window again. Yeah, there it is. So Michael here says, how do I use the sharpen mask? And you can keep it there. That's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You too. So how do you use a sharpen mask, another sharpening tool? Lately, I found myself using just the sharpening module in Lightroom or ACR, which is Adobe Camera Raw. Now I need to find the chat window. Where is that? There you go. And it's pretty straightforward. Let me get back to this. The way I sharpen, and now I go between an amount of 40 to 60. Let me bring that down. And let's just zoom in closer because you can see things clearer. So this is without sharpening, and it's taking some time to load. Yep. So I go between 40 and 60 to sharpen the details, and I'm looking at just these details here, and I'm looking at the road because I'm not going to sharpen the entire car. I'm just going to sharpen the edges. But when you move the slider, you are affecting the entire image, and we don't want to do that. So there's this masking slider in which I use Option on Mac. I think it's maybe Control on Windows. Click and slide. White reveals, black hides. Now let's zoom out. Let's see. White reveals. So I'm sharpening the edges of the car, and maybe a bit of the road want to get that as well. So somewhere like that would work fine. And I think I've said that before. I don't want to sharpen the entire photo. For example, I wouldn't want to sharpen the car, the body of the car, because it has paint, and sharpening that paint will look so odd. You want it to look smooth. So yeah, that's how I use the sharpening tool. Sorry, I think I missed one of your questions right here. All right, back to image stabilization. So image stabilization is really necessary in this case. And if you go see my, I think, 9 tips for better car rolling shots, the embody image stabilization in Sony really helped a lot. So yeah, you need to do it with IS enabled. So yeah, I think we just spoke about sharpening. Now, I don't do sharpening specifically for Instagram posts. You can maybe increase it a little bit more. And I think it's all about the export settings. So when I export to Instagram, I don't export exactly at the size of Instagram. I actually export it like at 8 MB or 10 MB. And I let Instagram do the scale down, because they are going to process that photo and they are going to scale it down and remove information. So the more you give them, I think the better, I guess. At least they wouldn't be scaling down a scaled down version. Alfredo, thank you so much. Really appreciate the kind words. Do I use external monitor on my camera? No. But I use the LCD that is with my Sony. However, I recently bought an iPad that I'm not using. A friend of mine showed me a way, of course, in which you can install Sony application on that, and you can tether. Well, it's not tethered, more like of a remote control. So when you shoot, you can actually see your shots transferred into the iPad, which is really amazing. But I'm not sure how would that work on a sunny day somewhere outside, for example, outdoor. Thank you again, Alfredo. Hello, Mexico. So we have got some fans from Mexico. That's great. What Apple products are you editing on? What am I editing on? There's a little lag on. I mean, it doesn't lag a lot, honestly. And so this is my Mac. It's an iMac. It's not the iMac Pro. Couldn't afford that. And maybe I don't need it, honestly. And I think the iMac is more than enough. As in for the memory, I ordered these somewhere from the internet. I can't recall where from. But yeah, I think it was an 8 gigs of RAM when I first bought it. And then I upgraded the entire thing. It's very important to have a graphics card. That's what I call it, or a GPU, Radeon Pro with 8 gigs. That's dedicated to it. So at least it can help with editing, especially when you're editing large files. Yeah. So the other question was, why did I change the color temperature at the last step? If I recall correctly, I went from warm to cold or cooler, and it's just a taste and a very subjective thing. And I thought that the photo would require more warmth. It was very cool for the look that I was aiming for, and I wanted to add a bit of warmth in the photo. So it's very subjective, and I know a lot of you might have had that question, and maybe, and I did have these questions when I watched photographers when I first started. I couldn't understand why would they warm up a photo or cool a photo, but with time and practice, eventually it will come naturally to you taking these decisions. So just practice. Burn photos. That's what I used to do, is just like put everything at high, clarity at 100 and high. But over time, you will start dialing things down, and you'll go for the right amount of, let's say, settings look, if that makes any sense. By the way, can you hear me clearly? Because haven't done that in a while, so I'm not sure if it's very clear at your end. And yeah. All right, that's great. That's great. Thanks. You're welcome for the RAW. So I'll try and get you more of the RAW files whenever I have a shoot. Of course, I need to sometimes get permissions. So I don't always have that luxury of just giving out the RAWs. So sometimes I just need to ask or get an approval to share a RAW file. So we have loud cut. The best way to create real smoke in Photoshop while shooting, honestly, I don't know, because I did not try that yet. I've seen a lot of photographers use the smoke machine. I think that's something that works well for them, especially if you want to create atmospheric smoke, something that doesn't just fade away quickly. I wouldn't recommend vaping because it's not good for your health, and I don't want to be held accountable for that. So yeah, smoking. I think the smoke machines. I think that's what they call it, smoke machines. You've got these. You plug it in, and at least that smoke is not harmful. Look that up on Google. Honestly, I'm not very experienced with it. I haven't used one before, but I've seen other photographers using it, and I think it's a good to have device, especially in closed places in which you want to have smoke and atmospheric smoke. These could work perfectly. All right, so audio is great. So I'm just reading one of the questions. So one of the guys here, which is Bicep, yes. This is my friend, by the way. If you guys are not following Bicep Automotive on Instagram and on YouTube, you're missing out a lot. I love really the style, and he progressed really fast because I think he is a photographer already, but also he have the eyes for the details. So go ahead, follow him on Instagram, Bicep Automotive. Am I saying that right? Bicep Automotive. I don't have biceps though. Yeah, and he actually says that getting an iPad on the shoot is really good. That helped him a lot. So yeah, sometimes, when you shoot on the smaller screens, you miss details. Like the Supra, for example. The Supra that I shot, we were in a hurry. It was very sunny, and I shot the Supra, and I didn't realize that the bonnet was half open on the side. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but I noticed that while editing. So I was like, well, what to do? It was too late. So, but Photoshop is to the rescue. But you wouldn't want to, create extra layers and spend hours fixing a problem that you could have just fixed in less than a minute on location. Hello, Germany. All right, Jamaica. Brilliant. You're welcome. Welcome, guys. Is there a way to get this RAW file? Yeah, I just sent it through the email. So if you guys are not, well, if you haven't subscribed, I'll do that towards the end. I'm going to share the link to my latest newsletter, which has a link to all of the raw files that I've previously shared. But if you watch my last tutorials, sorry about that, you'll see a link to subscribe to my newsletter. And I periodically do send raw files in newsletters in which you can download these and practice along. Yeah. Hey, Captain Beard Visual. You're welcome. Yeah, it's always good to start somewhere and experiment with, lights and different lighting techniques. I would say, not just lights, and which we might get. I have a few questions about these. So I think the last questions from Michael is, how do you decide the sweet spot between adjusting the whites and the blacks? Well, I think I mentioned that, right? So the option key on the keyboard, now, and I don't want you to do that pragmatically using just the software, because sometimes Lightroom tells you something, but it's going against the look that you're going after. So for example, if I click on the whites, all right, so this is the white slider. And if I click on the whites and hold the option key, which is a control on PC, and options on Mac, and if you move it around, you can see some kind of I wouldn't say masking, but you'll start seeing details coming in. And I learned that somewhere, that the minute you see these spots coming in from the mask, these are enough. But I'm also looking at the histogram. I don't want to overblow it. And you can see that on the histogram, everything's going towards the right. It's getting just overblown. And you can see it visually as well. So that's my technique. I once I start seeing these coming in, I'll just leave it and then adjust few points left and right until I find the sweet spot. And I do the same thing with the blacks. Oh, the blacks are not coming in. Hooah! Why is this happening? Whoa. Anyway, so that's the rule of thumb. Well, not the rule of thumb, really. And I've showed one more technique, which is if you hit J on the keyboard, you'll see the... now that's the blacks are not coming because I left it the blacks over here. So that's why we can't see it. But I think if I crush this down, sorry, yeah, there. Now you can see the blacks clearly. Sorry. Coming back. I was waiting for some help, but my brain to the rescue. So yeah, that's how I decide. And when you press J on the keyboard, and let me crush the blacks a little bit. The red spots over here, these shows overblown highlights, and you need to start controlling this. But in our case, these are really small details. They don't have information. These are, lights and, I don't know, the sun coming out from the right. However, it goes the same way with the blue parts in the photo. And these are crushed blacks, in which might have details that you might want to unveil. But because I lifted the blacks, it doesn't show over here. That's why. Now I can't recall what setting. Undo, 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 undo. Okay, I think that's it. So yeah, I think we've answered Michael's questions about this edit. Now let me show you what I've done into Photoshop just to take it a step further. I need to remember what I've done. So this is the background. This is kind of this here, right? I had to remove these from the photo because it was so hard to blend in the sky while having these. It just looked fake. So if I bring the sky, see, you can see, I mean, I could have spent more time trying to fix these details, perhaps cloning and masking and cloning and masking, but I think, you know what? They're too noisy anyway. I'm gonna remove them. And I did. Yep. And I think that's a curve tone. Why did I use curves mid-tone? So I just dropped the mid-tone, and I have no memory of this, by the way. I don't know why I did that. Or maybe I did and then I just like decided not to do it. I do that, by the way. Yeah, and then I brought in the skies and I used the mask to refine it as well. It's not like perfect, but I used that technique that I previously have showed you in the Lamborghini. Was it Lambo? It was a Lambo. So I have a video on how on sky replacement, and I used it over here. It's basically using the layer style option to tell Photoshop, well, it wasn't blue. I think I used blue and gray, both. No, I did not. Oops, sorry. So let's blue. Blue is good. To tell Photoshop to start replacing. I mean, I think if I used gray, it would have been the same because we don't have enough information in the sky. So what I'm telling Photoshop is I need to start revealing what underneath this layer with, or replace it with this, if that makes any sense. Anyway, you watched that YouTube video that I have. I explain how to do sky replacement. So type in Zainal sky replacement and you'll find the video. You can see I added like a yellow gradient over here just to try and match, so to the sky. Well, it's tied up to the sky and I'm trying to match the colors coming down here. And I've set this to spotlight, soft light, and drop the opacity down. I adjusted the hue and saturation as well just to get the right amount or the right tone of the sky or the cast that's coming down from here. And then I've used camera raw filter, you know, adding contrast, and I think I just added more contrast, honestly. I haven't done anything special. I added a curve, which was a tonal contrast. Again, it's another contrast, overall contrast. I've added a lot of contrast into this photo because I just felt like it could take more contrast. So yeah, that's about it for this edit. I don't think there's anything else special done, really. Hi, Martin. Oh, Martin, hi. And I recognize you, but I can't pronounce your second or last name, which is Cyprian. But by the way, guys, if you're not following Martin as well, you need to give that guy a follow. How do I get clients? I did get a lot of questions. Okay, let's get to the questions before I answer this. The ones on Instagram. Because one thing that you guys need to know is that. All right, I need to see the answers. Yeah, there you go. So the first question is, should I ask for money as a beginner car photographer? And I answered that a lot in my previous live videos. asking money with, especially, you know, you're still new in the field or in the market, and you're trying to build up your portfolio. Asking for money could make the other party hesitant, right? Because it involves money. They have processes and they need to get approval, or maybe, well, maybe it's an individual. So I did a lot of free shooting when I first started, and I still do every now and then. By the way, don't get me wrong. I mean, these shots were entirely free, and I just wanted to get the experience, and just wanted to, you know, build that relationship. So I didn't always ask for money, and there is a reason as well. It's not because here's a free shoot for you guys, go ahead, and I'm not gonna be paid for it. And the reason why I also can do that is because photography is not my business. It's not the business that I make money from. I work a desk job. I have a desk job. I work from 9 to 5, 4:30 to, you know, get it, the 9 to 5 desk job. And photography is just a side passion that I enjoy doing, especially when I want to de-stress. And I do occasionally ask for money. Well, make money out of jobs, because, you know, you've got companies that approaches you or approaches me that want to do a project, and that's fine. I'm very selective with my projects as well. So that's why I can't always answer the questions that you guys ask, because my situation is different. It's not like I'm making money out of it, right? Which advice would you give to who is trying to start a career as a car photographer? Practice, I think. Practice makes perfect. Build your portfolio. Build your network, relationships, and practice. I think there is a lot in these 4 or 3 points. Building relationship is very important, because you want to get to the right people. You want to show them that you are actually open for ideas, and you have a nice, good personality. And that as well goes to networking. Building up your portfolio will give them a proof that you are actually really good at what you do. So it's not just like you have 2-3 shots and say, hey, I need to get paid for what I do. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't. At the end of the day, you're doing something in exchange of something. All right. What are, in your opinion, the best entry-level light painting tools? I do have a video about the tools that I use for light painting, and I do also have and use the ice light, but maybe the ice light is very expensive and maybe not recommended at this stage, especially if you want some entry level. Then you have the Yongnuo 360, right? The Yongnuo 360. So there are a lot of options out there. I've seen people doing it with their smartphones, believe it or not. But it's not always, I mean, it's not always good. But I've shared my tools on my YouTube channel. So look for light painting tools. And I think it has a Jaguar photo on it. Let's post questions from Instagram. Okay, one more from Instagram. What is your favorite photography setup? And it's very, very tricky question to answer, because it really depends on the situation. Most of the time, what is that? Is that a new word? I shoot on natural. I can't talk today. Where's? All right, so I shoot I usually shoot in natural light. So I don't use a lot of light modifiers, especially when I am out in outdoors and using during the golden hour, I do have a Profoto B1 that I use occasionally that I can complement my outdoor shooting with. If you watch Bicep Automotive Instagram account, then you'll see how it's that done. I think he has some behind the oh, hello, what's going on? Behind the scene shots. I think it's getting late. It's getting late. Yeah, it's getting late. So he do have behind the scene shots on how to use how to use external light source like the Profoto B1 or the Godox 8400 or the Godox 8200 or 300, 360. That's what they have, 360, 300. Anyway, how to complement these with the existing, natural sunlight that you have. And I do have I think I do have the video with the Wrangler, in which I show you how I shot the Wrangler, at the beach with the sun behind it, and I used the 8360. Yes, it was the 8360 to get more details like the wheels, like the front of the car and some parts of the car that I masked in later on. So it's a very tricky question. It really depends on the situation, but 99.9% of the time I would be just carrying my camera, my 24 105 f4 Sony lens, and of course I would have my B plus W B&W CPL filter, and a Manfrotto tripod that I use. I think it's my first tripod and I still use it. It's the best tripod out there, really. So yeah, that was about my lighting setup, or the best photography setup. There are a lot of other questions that will take a lot of time as well. Someone is asking, which is Aerial Cars, asks about composition, and composition is just like a whole subject on its own. But mainly, when you do composition, you want to get, what is it called? The horizon or the vanishing point right for both photos, the background and the foreground. And sometimes that can be very tricky depending on the situation, but also you need to start matching colors of your subjects when you try and do compositions, and that shouldn't take a lot of time, but I always recommend to take it easy when doing compositions, because you can easily get things wrong in the process. So with compositions, I try to do it over a few days. So I sleep on it, wake up the next day and have a look and decide, well, this is not fitting. How about we try this and that, or maybe change the colors, or maybe even change the entire backdrop or the backplate, like they say. Yeah. All right, back to you guys. How to make a car spotter style edit? I don't know. I'm not sure about this question, so if you can elaborate, that would be great. If it's possible, can you make a series where you can assess fans' photos for Instagram? We spoke about that a lot, and the only problem is for me committing to it, and it is very subjective, especially when you start evaluating certain photos. You can get biased because of the way you edit or because of your workflow. But yeah, I think I should start doing that 2020. I've been saying that for a long time, honestly. So Martin here says it depends on the country. And for example, in Slovakia, so that's where he's from, it's very impossible, almost impossible to get money from photo shoots, by the way. So Martin here is doing it perhaps to build his portfolio and maybe to do it for fun, but also maybe to expand further away from his country. So, you get invited some other country to shoot cars, like, for example, Pepper Yandel. He does that oftenly. He travels around to shoot cars, and there are a lot of other people that does that as well. By the way, Martin, I really like how you get these highlights behind the car, kind of coming towards the shot, especially when you have these golden colors. They look really amazing, by the way. Really good job. I've just started using Photoshop. How do you create shadows using the brush tool? Ooh, that is a long subject. I don't know if I've covered it up before, though. I believe I do have some videos. I think I do. I think that's the one with what is it called? The virtual rig one. It was very fast shadow. Man, it's very tricky. And I think there is one with. I'm gonna look that up for it. It's very hard for me to talk today, so it's easier to look for it. Sorry guys, just give me a second, because that is the one with, was it Damien or was it Dominic? It's an early Zaheimer situation that I'm having at the moment. Sorry, I can't recall which video has it, but it's not as complex, but it's not as easy as well. I mean, achieving real shadows is, and recently I tried something and it didn't work out. It was the one with Pagani. Yes, I'll try and look for that. Let me look for it. Where's the chat window? It's gone again. I need to try the new YouTube Live, which shows you everything, I think, in one place. So we have a question from Nahil Abdulhadi. All right. I shoot Nikon. Shooting at RAW always give me extremely weird grain and fringes. Not even diffringing and noise reduction around 20 to 25 would fix it. That's very odd, though. Shooting RAW should give you more details to work with. Hello, Miami. You're welcome, Martin. Yes, lights. Kind of everything. Everything involves the light, and I think most of the tips is all around how do you set up the shots, even with natural light. Is how do you position your car in relation to your source, your light source. You should do a tutorial on how to replicate a color grade from another photo into yours in Photoshop. I think I did that. I do have a video for everything. It's just somewhere on my channel. So you can create a... Yeah, it was a lot. So exporting a lot from a photo. Let me search for that. Zainal. Lots. You like the way I typed? All right, hang on. Before I start talking, things can get really bad. You can see my face. All right, your pose, that's good. Yeah, here's the video, and I'm going to paste it here. There you go. So this video, generating, exporting a LUTs lookup table from any photo, which is really useful. And I do have, let me share the link to my this is one, and sorry guys, just give me a minute. I'm trying to look up the resources. my email newsletter mainly. I send in blue. Send in blue. Yeah, that's the one. So while I'm doing this, you can ask your questions because I don't have a lot, and I need to get ready to work for work tomorrow. And Jan 2020. How do I preview this? I'd rather look for it in my Gmail account than looking at Send in Blue. All right, let's get back to you guys and how to. Okay. Hello. JPEGs will always, well, you know what we call JPEGs. The camera does all the look. We call it the baked look within the camera. So it does add all the contrast, all the saturation, or the sharpening and detail. So it's a baked look. It's all there ready for you. I'm not sure, is it a compatibility issue? So depending on the software, if you're using Lightroom, you might want to try and update Lightroom to ensure that you don't have any compatibility issues with your RAW files. It should fix it. I remember Lightroom having issues with Sony when they first came out. Kind of a similar issue with compatibility. Especially we use this 8RW format, which is quite new to Lightroom. So library, let me see if I can find anything with shadows in it. Here's my Pagani. This was all about composition. Where is the shot? Oh, here it is. Yeah, I don't know if this is a good example as well. It was very easy to replicate the shadow in here. Yeah, original. Let me just bring this window. Oh, it doesn't go here. I'll give you guys here. Yeah, we'll bring this down. Your row files are here. Car films? No, I haven't done that before. I wanted to. I think I do have a bit of camera movement with focal length video, the one with the Porsche. That was kind of cool. Kind of an intro. Hi, Supreme Media. So this is a one with. Sorry, guys. Lots of windows. All right, so this is the one with the shadows. Let me try now and find and remember how I built that one up. Right yellow, left yellow, and car and shadows. There you go. So this is car and shadows. That's a lot of layers. Aha. There's a shadow. All right, you can see that I do have two shadows. So when you do compositions, you would require at least maybe, depending on the lighting situation and what you're trying to mimic, 3 to 4 layers of shadows. So This is the basic shadow, I think, the main shadow. That's what I called it. And it's very subtle. It's set at, I don't know percentage, but you can tell that it's because it's masked. Yeah. So this is a base shadow, and I also call it the touching shadow, and that's something that touches the wheels. Because when you have an object, and you can try that at home or anywhere. When you start having objects like this phone, for example, you'll have a touching shadow, which is very dark. It's just very close to the subject. It starts fading away, out, right? So sometimes I do have touching shadow. So I have a layer just for the touching shadow. And that helps a lot with making your shadows real. So this is one. And I use the mask to start masking things out because I just wanted a touching shadow and then something that fades out. And the same thing is done here. You can see that. How do I zoom in? Here's it. A very small touching shadow over here. And it really depends because I have the light coming in here, so you can't have the shadows outside the car. So it needs to be inside the car. The same thing is here. This is not as much as accurate as well, but once you add the longer shadow, and you can see that I faded out the shadow as well from the front. Perhaps just start doing that with an eraser tool. It just makes it more realistic. I hope that makes sense. And yep, I'm trying to look for the newsletter. Your raw files are here. Sorry, I can't find the link to the newsletter, but you can check one of my latest video and you will find a link to subscribe. So once you subscribe to the newsletter, you start receiving the raw files. And I'll try and get that for you guys, by the way. Share on social media. Found it. There it is. There you go. Oh no. This is not the one. This is a YouTube file. What's going on? What is going on? Copy. Alright. So it's almost my bedtime, guys. Paste. Right. So this was the last one. So if you click on this, it should take you down here. So this is how my newsletter looks like. And I have it segmented, and that's because I'm a marketer somewhat. That's what I do. But yeah, try and subscribe. It says unsubscribe here. So, but check out the link in one of my latest videos. You can subscribe to this and you'll start receiving these periodically. And I don't really spam people with other unrelated things. So you've got the watch tutorial and then the download the raw. Yep. Back to Instagram. Let me see if there's any question that I can answer as well. So we spoke about composition, how much is the charge of the US. Like I said, I don't know how much to charge, but there are a lot of articles that explains how can you price your work. How can you charge people? And I've shared it a lot of times previously, but I'm pretty sure you'll find a lot of resources because I won't be the right person to answer this question, honestly. And what inspired me to educate in automotive photography? When I first started, there wasn't really a lot. When I first started, I really struggled, and I knew that a lot of people were struggling as well. So when I first started the YouTube channel, my photos weren't as good as they are right now, but I still shared, and I'm still learning, by the way. So whenever I find a new piece of information, when I discover something new, when I do share on YouTube, and I think, well, not think, actually, one of the guys, I can't remember, was it an email or was it a comment, that said that because of my videos, his life changed because he found a career in it. And that is just amazing. It's changing someone's life because of videos or content that I created. It means a lot. Yeah. So sharing knowledge, I think, yeah, that's what I, well, that's what I've been doing, by the way, ever since. Not just in automotive, but this action script. And that's where the name comes from. So if you look for action script, you'll see a lot of tutorials on my current website about ActionScript. And whenever I learn something about ActionScript, I would just share it. So these were all about programming, Flash development. Back at the time, I hate ActionScript 3. Then I loved it. But yeah, I mean, these were my old tutorials. So I've always shared knowledge, and I think it makes a lot of difference. Oh, wow, that was from 2007. Okay. So yeah, that's why I teach automotive. And right now, you do have a lot of resources, more than what it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. You've got a lot of good guys like Damian Plisco. You've got Alex AT5 ET, and Biceps, who have recently, Biceps, I keep on saying Biceps, it's Bicep Automotive. He started a channel recently, and this last tutorial that he made about making sun rays is amazing. So you need to watch that. You also have Dave Cox. Dave Cox? Sorry, Dave. I forgot your last name. I'm tired. Sorry. Shooting Dave. Shooting Dave is has another channel as well. So there are a lot of individuals that started, spreading the knowledge to a certain extent. What is the best way to find a style in editing? I find all my photos look different. I'm not sure. What is the best way to find a style in editing? I find all my photos look different. You mean like getting consistent? I mean, if you look closely, even my files or my photos look kind of different, not consistent. So it's all about having themes, and it doesn't work really. Yes, I understand, like trying to find that look that is unique to all. I think it's just hard. Sometimes you do light painting, sometimes you do shoot in natural light, and these two give you different looks. So I'm pretty sure there are a lot of videos on how to get that thematic look on Instagram. But we are not food bloggers, right? We don't shoot food for a living or for blogging and a living. So our situation will be different. All right, guys, let me see if you guys have any further questions. And you can tell that. Oh yeah. Hey Tom, how you doing, buddy? And Tom England as well has a channel, by the way, that you guys need to check. Aaron is amazing. Frederick's closer is wonderful. His photography is out of this place, really, out of this world. He's very young and talented as well. Do give these guys a follow. Martin's work is also good. Right, when doing a shoot with Godox 8200 multiple flash pops, what light modifier do you recommend? And tips to making the lighting looks more realistic. Well, I'm not sure about copy, paste, and realistic or not. When you do use external light, like the 8400 or 8200 or Godox or the Profotos or B1 that I use, B10. Okay, I totally have a memory loss. You do have one of the modifiers that I always recommend. I mean, you need to experiment with multiple ones. I've seen people diffusing the light, especially when they're using these modifiers. They have like a big sheet of, I don't know, is it reflector? Is this what they call it? But anyway, they use it to diffuse lights, and then they would go part by part on the car and try and get that. Honestly, I find that a little bit challenging. I wouldn't say hard, because you need to be consistent with the light, and moving the light up and down, or with the modifier up and down, would make things harder in Photoshop, because you'll need to start matching the light, and that's where the challenge is. Oh yeah, so about modifier, softbox is essential, but also let me try and find it for you. These silver reflectors are really good, and I like to use these as well. I do have a strip box as well that I've used in many of my shoots. Let me try and find some. But I'll tell you why, especially with the 8200, something like this will be very good, because it will boost the light and will give you a directional light as well. So it will kind of get you more concentrated light. This silver, what do they call this? What's wrong with me today? I shouldn't have gone live, by the way. Yeah. Memory loss. There's my daughter there. I don't know what the hell it is, honestly. And it was Ford. So it was a Ford. Do you see Ford? Yeah, Ford GT. So, okay, not this Ford GT. Oh, So the Miami Blue, for example, this shot. Look at this closely. I almost forgot. So I do have one shot. So you can see this silver reflector. And then you have in Profoto something called the Magnum reflector, which looks like this. It just gives you more boost for the light. So you can see that I was trying different power modes on my strobe until I found something that I liked. And my assistant was, me and my assistant were trying to find the perfect spot. But you can see I was trying to get a consistent light throughout the car. No. There you go. Let me see if I can find so this is the final look. The final combined look. And that was shot a while back. I think 2 or 3 years ago. While I was experimenting with this. And I have another one, but I really didn't like how it turned out. I think it was here somewhere. Yeah. So this is a mix of natural light and a strobe at the same time. So this is how it looks like. There you go. Strobed. This is the strobe. Let's try and open this file because it's going to take a while I try and find what I'm looking for. Why am I holding this? You guys are going to make me very sleepy tomorrow. So I'm supposed to be in bed by now. By the way, yes, I do sleep at 10 o'clock. 10:30. I lied. TTRS, LMS. Oh, focal length. I don't know where it is. Aha! There it is. Got it. So, see in this example, and this very much example, you'll see that I'm using a reflector like this. A modifier that looks like this. And I tried it, and I kind of liked it, but not too much, because it was just giving me a lot of hot spots. So I, anyway, took a lot of shots, but then decided to change from this to a strip box. And you can tell with the strip box, you get softer lights. And this is the final look. Why am I holding this again? Now, I have to admit that the ground was really dark, and that was problematic because the rims were dark as well. So it seems like you didn't have enough, or I didn't have enough contrast between what's down and, yeah. So let's raise that up. You can tell the difference between this and that, right? So you see this. I forgot how to compare. But so this, and let's say maybe this. It's all over the place. And I also shot this towards the end because I like the way it looks. So this shot is one frame, and it's totally easier. I had a strip box, but it's not easy. It's very heavy. I had the strip box mounted on a tripod, and I was holding it that way. With the Profoto B1, it is so heavy. I almost like fell down. I don't have. You can see. There you go. Let's raise the shadows. Raise the exposure, and you can see me over here. And this is the Profoto softbox. Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's just you need to experiment with the different modifiers. Sometimes a silver reflector would just work. Sometimes you need a strip box or even a normal soft box. The 3x or the 4x2 or 3x2. I think these are not the strip box, but the medium ones. Hello, hello, hello. You are welcome anytime. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else really to show. Lambo. Oh, with the Lambo, for example, here I use the AD200 since you've asked about the AD200, and I have a video. So watch the video of the AD200. It wasn't like the best shot ever, but this was the end shot. It's okay. It's an okay shot. It's not a wow shot, but it's an okay shot for the AD200 and the location. I think it was just too dark and it just didn't have enough space to move around. It was too close. So yeah, this is the AD200. Let's see if I have anything else. No. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, this is the Wrangler one. So this is the one with the AD360. We spoke about these earlier. So also I do have a video on how I shot this. So make sure to check this one out. This is with the, again, small silver reflector. Can't talk today. And the end shot was this one. Or this one. Oh, this one, sorry. Yeah, this is the one. A7 II, worth buying? A7 II. Honestly, I don't know. I know that the A7 III is worth buying. I'm not sure about the A7 II, because the A7 III is a totally different engine. It has I have a post about that, but in a nutshell, the batteries are better. The video, the balance between video and photo is better. I think it has a lot of pros. But honestly, I can't tell you about the A7 II. I can tell you about the A7R II because I used it. And it's an amazing camera, but I had to let that go in favor of the A7 III because of I explained that in the post, but mainly I didn't require the 40 megapixels, and I needed lighter files, and I needed a good camera balance between video and photo, new technology, new battery, stuff like that. Hey, great, Brandon. What are your favorite colors to shoot? Thank you, Alfred Media. I don't know. I like, it's not just the color, but the type of the paint. It really makes or breaks the photo. So sometimes you do get normal, like the Maxima here, which is white. You do get nice as well shots with it, but let me show you the difference between the Maxima and where can I find the kicks? Do you see Nissan anywhere here? Because I don't. Lambo. Light painting. I need to organize my files. Ah, there it is. So this is the one with Nissan, and then you have the kicks. So look at the kicks color. This color is amazing because it's out of focus. This is not the reason why it looks great, but let me show you this shot. You can tell that the type of paint that this car was painted with just reflects the lights really well and in a nice way. In the same way, you can tell that I kind of painted this. And the same thing goes to, remember the Alfa Romeo that I shot? It had just a wonderful color. This car, beautiful. There. Shoot it from any angle, it will still look great and gorgeous. So the type of paint, so I like the reds, I like the yellows. These colors really can pop. Oh, what's going on here? I think I was experimenting. Reset. This one over here. And believe it or not, this is the before. So this is straight out of camera. This is straight out of camera, and the color is just amazing. It's the type of color. It's very reflective. it just makes your work easy. And sometimes you get cars that do not reflect colors, light easily, and these are pain in the neck. Yeah. And I think I have a good example, but I'm not sure where it is right now. So yeah, I think this was the Supra. I think the Supra has a great color when I first saw it. Yes, this is the one. So when I first saw it, it had really a good color, right? It looked something like this. But when I came down to shooting it, I was like, I went like that. It's just the way the paint that the way that the paint interacts with light, how it reflects. But I had to do a lot to bring that color back. So this is one, and this is the other one. There you go. All right, guys, it's time for me to head to bed. I need to get to work tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who have just joined, you can watch a replay of this. So this will be made available once I end up this session, which is about now, and I'm trying to find OBS. Thank you all for sending me your questions. Thank you for your questions down here, and thank you for interacting with me. And I should do more of these in the future. It's just I've been very busy with work, with life in general. But I'll make sure I'll make this habit at least once a month. So I don't forget, for example, how do I start a live stream? And I can barely speak today. So thank you all once again, and I'll see you in the next live stream. Yeah. Good night. And if you have any further question, you can just head out to Instagram and send me those over there.